Welcome! Today we're going to do something a little different. We're not just diving into a story in the Bible, we're going to explore the story of the Bible itself. It's going to be awesome.
So, have you ever picked up a Bible, maybe at a friend's house, and thought, wait a minute, this table of contents looks different than mine? Well, that's not a mistake. It's actually a super interesting clue that unlocks a whole story. Okay, so picture this. The Bible is like this huge, incredible, ancient library, right? Filled with all these sacred scrolls. What we're going to do today is look at two totally different blueprints for how that library is put together. So first, we'll check out the original Hebrew blueprint. Then, we'll put it side by side with the Christian one, and you'll see how just changing the order creates two really powerful, unique ways of reading the story.
All right, let's kick things off by hopping in a time machine. We're going way back to look at the structure of the Hebrew Bible, which is called the Tanakh. This is like the original blueprint.
So, the word Tanakh is pretty cool because it's actually a clue in itself. It's an acronym. It's made from the first letters of its three main parts, T for Torah, N for Nevi'im, and K for Ketuvim. Super clever, right? A built-in roadmap.
Okay, so what's so cool about this three-part design? Well, it tells a story in its own way. It starts with the Torah. That's the foundation, the core instruction. Then you get the Nevi'im, the prophets, who look back at Israel's story and say, hey, remember the Torah? Here's how we're doing. And then it wraps up with the Ketuvim, or writings, which is this amazing mix of poetry, wisdom, and songs about what it's like to live all of this out. And you know, this structure wasn't just slapped together. For hundreds of years, these incredibly dedicated scribes called the Masoretes were like the ultimate librarians, guarding these texts. Get this, the ancient Hebrew language only had consonants, so these scribes carefully, painstakingly added little marks for vowels to make sure that the way it was read and sung would be preserved perfectly forever.
Wow. Okay, so that's blueprint number one. Now, let's switch gears and look at a totally different blueprint. When early Christians put together their Bible, they used all the same books, but they organized them in a new way, with 4 sections instead of 3. So, where did this new layout come from? Well, it was really influenced by a Greek translation of the scriptures called the Septuagint. See, the people making this translation were thinking like Greek librarians of the day. They like to organize things by topic, by genre, so that's what they did. And that one decision to group books by their style created this completely new structure. So instead of the Tanakh's 3 parts, this blueprint has 4. Law, history, wisdom, and prophets. All the history books, boom, together. All the poetry and wisdom books, boom, in their own section. And all the prophets, they get gathered together right at the very end. It's like organizing your movies by genre, action, comedy, drama, instead of, say, by the person who directed them. Same movies, different order. And here's another interesting thing. Because this new structure came from that Greek Septuagint, sometimes you'll find extra books in Catholic or Orthodox Bibles. They're called the deuterocanonical books. They were in that Greek version, but they weren't part of the final Hebrew collection, the Tanakh.
Okay, so you might be thinking, does any of this really matter? It's the same books, right? Just a different filing system. But the answer is yes. It matters a ton, because the last book in each library, the ending, completely changes the direction of the whole story.
This is where it gets really fascinating. So the Tanakh ends with the book of 2 Chronicles, and the very last words are this royal decree from a king, saying to the people of Israel, hey, you can go back home from exile, go up to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. It's an ending about return, restoration, and rebuilding the nation. It feels like a resolution, but the Christian Old Testament ends completely differently. It ends with the prophet Malachi, and his last words aren't about history, they're a prophecy looking to the future. He talks about a messenger Elijah who's coming to prepare the way for God himself. So it's not a resolution at all, it's a cliffhanger. It leaves you waiting in total suspense for the sequel.
And that's exactly the point, right? That cliffhanger in Malachi is the perfect bridge. It sets the stage for what's coming next in the New Testament, which kicks off with John the Baptist, who's seen as that new Elijah, and of course, Jesus. So, isn't that incredible? The exact same collection of sacred books, arranged in 2 different ways, tells 2 powerful but distinct stories. It really shows us that how you structure something completely shapes its meaning, and that different perspectives can both be powerful and valid. You know, this reminds me of a really important Jewish character trait, or midah, called bina. Bina is more than just knowing a bunch of facts. It's that deep,
gut-level understanding you get when you see how all the little pieces connect to form the whole big picture. It's also about realizing that there's often more than one way to see that picture. So here's our challenge for the week, a way to practice Bina. Try this. Find a friend or a family member who sees something differently than you. Could be a movie, a hobby, anything. And instead of jumping in to argue your point, just ask them questions, like at least 3 real questions to understand why they feel that way. And just listen. The goal isn't to win or even to agree. It's just to try and see the blueprint of how they see the world.
And that kind of leaves us with this big question to think about, right? The way we organize things, the way we tell our stories, it has a huge impact on what they mean. So, what are the blueprints in our own lives, in our families, our friendships, even in our own heads, that are shaping the stories we tell ourselves every single day? Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.